You know, it's good seeing you guys. Y'all got me out here working. I'm running around downtown chasing our new mayor. And I miss you guys, so it's good to see you. Thanks for coming out this morning. Yeah. So look, this property after death seminar, this is a lot of valuable information. I lose a lot of homes because for a lack of estate planning. So I need you guys to pay close attention to this. It could be that important between something very small and you losing your home. And once again, I get foreclosures, I get everything on a monthly, weekly basis. We are losing our homes to small little things. Fraud, people are taking my seniors' homes by having the title, I don't know the technical terms, but they're transferring title to somebody else. So I need you guys to pay attention here. This is very important. So I wanted to acknowledge my partners in crime in hosting this, but they're not here. But I want to acknowledge that one of my partners, Marcus Evans, you guys state rep in the 33rd district, and of course Curtis Tarver in 25. I'm doing a lot with those guys, helping me bring a lot of money from the state to the city, because the city, we just don't have as much money as the state. But those guys are really working with me to bring things to the neighborhood. So when you see them and talk to them, tell them, thank you, but we need more. Do that for me, okay? Tell them Greg needs more. But once again, great seeing you guys. It's a lot of information, so I'm gonna move along with the program. I don't know if I'm supposed to do this, but I'll do it. So for the housekeeping, I want to introduce you guys to Lindsay Chase. There she is. Now I see this. You're supposed to do this. No, the housekeeping, yeah? There you go. All right, guys. I didn't read it before I started, so bear with me.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for coming. We're going to go over a few housekeeping items. So the first thing is the restrooms are directly out the sanctuary. You're going to make a slight left and go down a hallway. The women's is on the left and the men's is on the right. So once again, you'll go directly out the sanctuary, make a slight left, down the hallway. The women's is on the left, the men's is on the right. Next thing we'll go over is when you came in at the registration table, you received a couple of items after check-in. You received a packet from all of us, or you should have received a packet. And the packet has note cards. With the note cards, you're going to write any questions that come up that you have during the presentation. And we will collect the note cards at the end of the presentation, and we'll get the attorneys to answer them. Also, you received forms, 3 pages. The first form is your property fraud alert form. That's a 1-page form. That's going to be going over during the presentation. The next form is actually 2 pages, and it's a toady. So if you didn't get any of this, if you want to raise your hand, I'll bring you a packet. Bonnie will bring you a packet. Mr. Cross, he'll bring you a packet. Keep it up for me for a few minutes. Pens, any of that needed. 2, please. 3, 4. 4, please. And now we're going to have the Special Assistant for Community Affairs, Ms. Robin Staggers. Come on. Oh, also, your phones. If you can silence your phones during the presentation so we don't have any extra distractions, that'd be great. And now we'll have Ms. Robin Staggers come up.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. We're getting the forms for those of you who did not get them coming in. So how's everybody this afternoon? Good, good, good. I am here. We are here on behalf of Cook County Clerk Karen A. Yarbrough. You know who that is? She's Cook County Clerk, right? So we are here to represent her and to bring this program to you because she has an undying passion for helping people in the community, especially the Black and brown people in our community, and bring information to them to help them protect their hard-earned assets, right? So you worked hard for your assets, right? And you want to work harder even to keep them. So we're here to bring you that information, and we want to thank Alderman Greg Mitchell, State Rep Marcus Evans, and the other collaborator, Illinois State Representative Curtis Tarver, for having us here today, because if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have this forum. And we appreciate them partnering with us. And we also have attorney partner Marlo Paul here from the Center for Disability and Elder Law. She's our resident legal expert on estate planning, and they join us free of charge to come out and answer questions that you may have, legal questions that you may have. We also have our attorneys from the Cook County Clerk's Office, Devin Mapes and Kang Trent. So they are here to assist you with legal questions pertaining to the clerk's office. Now, let me preface something. The clerk's office cannot assist you in completing your forms. We are not attorney. Well, we're not your legal counsel, okay? So that's why Marlo Paul is here from the Center for Disability and Elder Law, because they provide free legal services in the community. Okay, so please keep that in mind as we go through our presentation. We also have Brian Cross from our Veteran Services Division. How many in here are veterans? 1, 2. You might want to see Brian after our presentation so that he can tell you or sign you up for our free veteran services. We have a lot of free services in the clerk's office. Did you know that? And free is good, right? Brian.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Brian Cross. I am the Director of Veteran Services for the Cook County Clerk's Office. I am proud to be here today amongst all of you. What a great day, and you're going to learn a lot. What we emphasize in the Veteran Service Offices is we encourage all of our veterans to record their DD-214s. It's extremely important if you have a fire, flood, loss of the DD-214 when you really need it. And please share this with any of your family and friends who are veterans too. We also offer the military veteran discount card. We have about 160, 170 vendors. And this summer, we're lucky enough that we're offering free Chicago White Sox tickets for veterans. They get Monday through Thursday home games. They'll sit you even downstairs, anything outside the bases. Just so I can see who are our veterans amongst us today. Got a gentleman here, gentleman waiting back here. We want to thank you for your service. And so we have 3 here. I want to see each and every one of you. 4, 5. I want to see each and every one of you after. And let's give our veterans an applause. Let's give them, for serving us. So thank you very much, and I look forward to serving you at the conclusion of our presentation.
Thank you so much, Brian. So you see, we have some great services that we offer to the community and the residents of the community from the Cook County Clerk's Office. That's a good thing, right? So do all of you know what actually the Clerk's Office does? Anybody? No? Okay. So we put on these free educational forums for you, and they're property fraud, and you'll learn about that today. We have property after death, which covers our transfer on death program. We also have vital records. You know what vital records does, right? Everybody knows what vital records does. And we also have our tax services. So if you lose your property for the taxes, you go to that department to redeem your property, because you can lose your property for not paying your property taxes, right? We also have clerk of the board. And the clerk of the board works directly with the president's office, Cook County Board President's office. And They assist in putting on the board meetings, weekly board meetings. What else we do? Did I cover everything? Veteran services. Oh, recordings. That's the most important part. Your property records are recorded in our office. You know that, right? We record all property records in Cook County, and those records are kept in our office. And we're like a large public library. So we record anything that happens to your property, we record it on your chain of title. You know what your chain of title is, right? You do? You don't? Okay, you're going to learn about that today, too. Because your chain of title is a record for your particular PIN number. It's each property has a 10-digit PIN number. And that 10-digit PIN number is specifically associated with your property. Anything that's recorded, your deed, liens, if you sell your property, your release, all of that is recorded on your chain of title. And we're going to tell you how to check your chain of title, because you should know that your property belongs to you. There's a way that you can check it to make sure nobody has stolen your property. And that's where we're going to go over property fraud. Okay? So we do a lot of free stuff in the clerk's office, and we want you to take full advantage of what we do there. Okay? So Lindsay gave you some instructions. What are you going to do with the index cards? And you're going to have them for us at the end of what? The presentation. So that means that in the middle of the presentation, you're not going to be doing this. Okay? You're going to hold your questions, and we're going to collect the questions and give them to our attorneys to be answered, or the questions to be answered. Okay? Is that fair? Okay. So now that I have given you the brief overview, and Lindsay has given you the housekeeping rules, let me see. I got some questions. How many of you know that it's easier to steal a home than it is a car? It is. You're going to find out about that in the presentation. How many of you have a plan to live forever? Either on this side or on the other side, right? Now, how many of you have a plan for transferring your wealth to your loved ones after your death? That's good. How many have a will? Good. How many have a trust? Okay. How many have no plan at all? That's not bad. That's why we're here. Okay? So we're here to teach you about alternatives for transferring your wealth outside of having a will, a trust. Doesn't require legal fees, no court costs, no probate, and you may not need an attorney. Okay, so now that we've told you that you need to have a plan, we're going to go and move forward with our presentation.
Please note, there are lawyers present today who work for the Cook County Clerk's office, but although they are lawyers, they are not your lawyers. They can answer any questions related to the office, but they cannot and will not offer you legal advice. However, the volunteer attorneys on this panel today are sharing their time and expertise with you as a public service. They are not paid by the clerk's office to be here, and you are free to consult them or any qualified attorney to address your legal concerns. There are free legal service organizations we partner with who are present here today. They can offer you legal advice for free. We would also encourage you to see if you qualify for their services. Thank you, and enjoy the presentation.
Hello, and welcome. I'm Karen Yarbrough, your Cook County Clerk. Thank you for joining me and us for this presentation on property fraud and managing your property after death. The Cook County Clerk's Office is one of the largest consolidated clerk's offices in the entire nation. In addition to functioning as the chief election authority for suburban Cook County, the clerk's office maintains birth, marriage, and death records. Our office also assists property owners in redeeming delinquent taxes and serves as the clerk to the Cook County Board of Commissioners. The clerk's office also has a recording operations division, which records, stores, and maintains land records and other official documents, including deeds, transfer on death instruments, as well as tax and real estate documents. Now, nobody wants to talk about death or end-of-life planning, but when you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And we all need to be aware of the threat of property fraud and how we can guard against this type of financial crime. At the Cook County Clerk's Office, we are here to serve, and we hope that this information you received today will be helpful on these important issues that impact all of our daily lives. Now, let me introduce you to my trusty assistant who will guide us through this presentation.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we begin our discussion, we want to let you know that we will have volunteer attorneys available at the end of the presentation who can answer your questions about the topics we will be covering. If you are joining our program via Zoom and have questions that come up during the presentation, simply type your question in the Q&A section through your Zoom link and the attorneys will respond accordingly. Now, let's begin our discussion by talking about property fraud, which can also be known as deed fraud. So, what exactly is property fraud? Property fraud is the fraudulent and illegal recording of a document against your home's property records. We call it paper terrorism, and it's a very real problem and potential risk for all property owners. How can this happen? Almost every state has an open and public recording system, meaning that you cannot freeze your chain of title like you can your credit report. Plus, county recorders are not authorized by law to validate legal claims made in documents. Property fraud can involve the recording or filing of false or forged transfers of ownership, quitclaim deeds, or the filing of a bogus lien to steal property or harass an unsuspecting property owner. Even if your home is paid off, that does not stop someone from filing a new deed on top of it without the property owner's knowledge. Let's look at this NBC5 investigative report that takes a close look at how property fraud can occur.
By law, it is a line anyone can stand in and a fee anyone can pay. $40 is all it takes to get a deed or other document officially recorded in Cook County, a simple perk of open government openly abused by serious scammers.
I think they call them, financial parasites.
She was new to her office as recorder of deeds when Karen Yarborough says she first spotted the trouble.
To steal a home, all you have to do is doctor some paperwork up and Photoshop it, bring it to the recorder's office, record it, voila, you own a home.
Con artists exploiting a system that relies on the honesty of those who use it, recording forged documents in order to steal a home outright. Sound far-fetched?
This is a kind of crime that I never imagined that could happen.
It did to Chicago Treasurer Stephanie Neely until it happened to her.
I get this call, I'm like, what do you mean someone has changed the name on my deed? What do you mean? How do they do that?
In her case, a stranger recorded a fraudulent deed, waited until she was at work, and then changed the lock.
They want to physically be in your house, because once they're there, it's very difficult to get them out.
Precisely what happened to this Chicago woman.
This individual had paperwork that was Xerox that showed the deed was in his name.
She asked us to conceal her identity because
you're in constant fear that they will try something next, because believe it or not, they did come back 3 days later.
One man connected to her case was arrested and convicted. As the recorder's office continued to field fake documents,
I decided that I couldn't sit idly by and watch this happen.
Yarborough brought in this man.
They believe that the government created artificial duplicates of all of us.
An expert on sovereign citizens, the extreme anti-government movement often behind this crime.
They believe they can completely ignore our government and do whatever they want to do with impunity.
Pitcavage calls it paper terrorism and teaches the red flags, like the punctuation sovereigns add in the middle of names, the refusal to use mainstream addresses or zip codes, and how they employ lengthy, arcane terms. The flurry of documents they file may be fake, but their threat is real.
They're bullies. They're brazen. They think that nothing can touch them.
A lot of times they'll come in and overwhelm our frontline staff. You know, it may be 20 of them will come in.
Yarborough has a catchy comparison she uses to get a non-believer's attention. In Illinois, it is easier to steal a home than it is to steal a car.
It's fraud, and, you know, they're taking people's homes.
So there is now a simple way for some homeowners to protect themselves, the free property fraud alert system. You load your property index number, then you get an alert if any document is recorded in connection with your property. Counties across the country are now turning to this kind of system as these cases of mortgage and property fraud continue to grow. Lisa Parker, NBC5, investigates.
To combat this problem, Clerk Yarborough created a property fraud unit with investigators and caseworkers who respond to and investigate any complaints of property fraud. The clerk's office also offers a free property fraud alert that will provide a telephone call or email to the property owner anytime a document is recorded against their property or the property of a loved one. There are 3 easy ways to sign up for the clerk's free property fraud alert. You may sign up in person at the clerk's office, you can sign up online, or you can sign up with a telephone call. Once registered, if you receive an alert or have a reason to be concerned about property fraud, you can contact the clerk's property fraud unit and our staff can help research the problem and coordinate a response. Call 312-603-4000 or visit our website at cookcountyclerk.com/property fraud. On a related note, while we're on the topic of your chain of title and fraud, property owners often need to obtain an official copy of their property deed when purchasing a home or for tax purposes. You should be aware there is a predatory practice aimed at homeowners in which companies offer a copy of your property's deed at a large markup price, sometimes exceeding $200. The clerk's office wants to remind you that we offer the same service on our website starting at just $5. In-person prices can range from $10 to $55 depending on the format and age of the document. So either way, there's no reason to pay exorbitant prices to gain access to these essential documents. Now, let's move on to the second part of our program, which is making plans to manage your property and assets in the event of your death. As Clerk Yarborough noted, no one wants to talk about death or end-of-life planning, but it's critical to manage your assets to protect your family and loved ones. Having a sound end-of-life plan is one of the greatest gifts that you can provide to your children and family members. Consider this. What do you think these 3 legendary individuals have in common? Prince, Aretha Franklin,
87 years ago, our fathers,
and Abraham Lincoln. Actually, they have something very unfortunate in common. They failed to make plans for their assets upon their death. No will, no trust, and no plan. Now, let's consider someone who thought he had it right. Music legend James Brown, the godfather of soul. When he passed away in 2006, Brown's estate was worth an estimated $90 million. When he died, Brown left behind a plan for most of his estate to pay for scholarships for children in need in South Carolina, the state where he was born. But that will was challenged by family members after his death, resulting in more than 12 lawsuits. It took more than a decade of litigation before Mr. Brown's assets were designated as he had intended. So how do you get it right when it comes to your property after death? The best advice is to consult an attorney or estate planning professional to provide you with advice for your specific circumstances. But you should also know that under Illinois law, you can transfer your home, your car, or your bank account to a loved one without a will or a trust, and without having to pay any fees or court costs. Here are the details on how to transfer your property. First, a transfer on death instrument. The clerk's office has a free document on our website known as a transfer on death instrument. We call it a TODI. No, not that kind of toady. You can also obtain this document at no cost from any attorney or legal aid organization. The form should be completed and notarized and then recorded at the clerk's office in our Recording Operations Division. The transfer on death instrument will then be recorded on your property's chain of title, and, upon your death, the person designated to receive your property can do so after completing the required forms. Please note that the clerk's office cannot assist you in the preparation of a transfer on death instrument or any legal document. We do not provide legal advice to customers. Next, let's discuss a payable on death instrument. You can transfer the funds from your local bank account in a similar way. Utilizing a tool known as payable on death instrument, a person can transfer assets in a bank account to the beneficiary of their choosing after death. A payable on death instrument can be obtained and used at most financial institutions for checking and savings accounts, as well as certificates of deposits, CDs, money markets, and savings bonds. Even if you have completed a payable on death instrument, the account holder has full control of their funds in the account until the time of their death. When the account holder passes, the beneficiary can claim specified assets directly from the financial institution without having to wait for probate court proceedings. Finally, let's discuss a beneficiary affidavit. There is also a mechanism to transfer your car to a designated beneficiary. A vehicle owner may change, add, or remove a beneficiary on the title of their car by completing a free beneficiary affidavit through the Illinois Secretary of State's office. To obtain this beneficiary affidavit, go to the Illinois Secretary of State website at www.ilsos.gov. Keep in mind that if money is still owed on your home or vehicle at the time of your death, your beneficiary will be responsible for the mortgage and payments moving forward. On behalf of Clerk Karen Yarborough, we hope that you have found this presentation useful. The clerk's office is your first line of defense against property fraud, so we hope that you will take this opportunity to sign up for our free property fraud alert if you have not already done so. Managing your property and your assets in the event of your death is also critical to protecting your family and your assets, and to ensure that your wishes are carried out after your death. A copy of this presentation is available on the clerk's website if you would like to review it again or share with a friend or family member. Please visit www.cookcountyclerk.com/PAD resources to review the presentation. For more information on how to host a Property After Death Property Fraud Forum in your community, contact our Special Assistant to the Clerk for Community Affairs, Robin Staggers, at 312-603-3974 or email robin.staggers@cookcountyil.gov. Now let's ask the volunteer attorneys who are joining us to introduce themselves, and we will open up our presentation for your questions.
The questions to the attorneys, and they will provide you with the answers. Did you guys introduce yourselves?
Hello, everyone. I'm Marlo. I'm Marlo Paul. I'm an attorney with the Center for Disability and Elder Law. If you want information about the services that we provide, there are some green pamphlets at the table back there. Feel free to grab one or multiple. We do estate planning services for seniors and individuals with disabilities of low or moderate income. So that means we do things like transfer on death instruments, which you heard about in the presentation. We do wills. We do powers of attorney, both for healthcare and property. And we also assist people with consumer rights. And if you're dealing with fraud as a senior, we help people with that as well. Our services are completely free if you qualify. And I'm really happy to be here and to talk to you all today.
Hello, my name is Devin Mapes. I am one of the attorneys here from the Cook County Clerk's office. Handle a variety of issues for the office. It really depends on the day. Prior to this, I was a prosecutor for a few years. Prior to that, I was a clerk for a judge for a few years. So happy to be here.
My name's Kang Trin. I'm the supervisor of the fraud unit. So we've got 2 investigators, and after this conference that we have today, if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call about any questions you have about your property. If there's a document that you don't know why it's there, it's really important. Just to start, before we start answering the questions, there's a disclaimer here. So I am an attorney, I'm a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer. And Devin here is a lawyer, but he's not your lawyer. We're lawyers for the Cook County Clerk's Office, and we can answer questions as they relate to the office, but we cannot offer you legal advice. The attorneys sitting next to us here are Marlo from the Center for Disability and Elder Law, volunteering her time and expertise as a public service. They are not paid by the Cook County Clerk's Office to be here. You are free to consult with them or any other qualified attorney to address your legal concerns. There are free legal service organizations we partner with who are present here today again, the Center for Disability and Elder Law, who can provide you with free legal advice. And we encourage you to see them after this presentation is over to see if you qualify for those services.
Okay, so you have the identities of all of our legal experts, right? All right, and you got information for you to use to transfer your property. So the first question I have is, my husband passed. My name isn't on the house. I contacted Chicago volunteer lawyers. I had to pay $200 for volunteer lawyers to obtain a pro bono attorney. So now I am waiting to hear from an attorney. What should I do?
So if it was Chicago Volunteer Legal Services, usually with their probate division, it sounds like you would be in a probate situation if the name wasn't on the house before your husband passed. Sorry to hear about that. So I would continue to follow back up with them. If they did ask you to pay, a low $200, usually it's going to be a lot more than that for a probate attorney. So since you've already put some money in there, I would continue to follow up with them. You're also, of course, well within your rights always to look for new attorneys. If you're not pleased with the services that you're getting from your current attorney, shop around, look at the other legal aid organizations that are out there. Unfortunately, there aren't a whole lot in Chicago and Cook County that do probate cases, just because that court system can take many years. But certainly the ones that do exist, we at the Center for Disability and Elder Law would be happy to connect you with those attorneys and take a look at your case if you qualify for our services. And we are a free legal aid organization. So there are other legal aid organizations out there that you can look into. And of course the private bar as well, though you would be paying the private bar significantly more than a $200 fee to do a probate court case. But that would be my recommendation, would be continue to follow up with the attorney you've already hired. If you get to the point that you're unhappy with it and you want to fire that attorney, look for other attorneys that are out there, because probate is it's a beast of a process that you're really gonna want an attorney to go through that process.
So what is the income level for your free services?
Our income level is around 200% of the federal poverty guidelines. So that's going to depend on how many people reside in the home with you, whether you have significant medical bills or other types of bills that create an undue burden. We take it on a case-by-case basis. So certainly give us a call to do a pre-screen. That's where we assess you for eligibility. That pre-screen takes only about 5 minutes, and we would be able to give you an answer as to whether we can represent you. And if we can't represent you for free, we would give you referrals to other organizations in Chicago and Cook County that may be able to assist if we can't.
Okay. An elderly question here. How not to be forced into a nursing home? What forms are needed after the toady is filed to claim the property? Is a will and trust needed, or just one or the other? I have a toady on file already.
So what the transfer on death instrument actually does is it's not going to do anything until you pass away. And that is kind of the beauty of a transfer on death instrument, is that it gets the home, your home, out of your estate, which can sometimes help you avoid the whole probate court process for your heirs, which can be very costly. When it comes to not being forced into a nursing home, as long as you have the legal capacity, you can't be forced to do something against your will. It's when it becomes an issue for a lot of folks is when they've lost legal capacity and they don't have an agent or a power of attorney that they've set up prior to losing that legal capacity, who they trust to follow through with their wishes. So that's one thing that I would highly, highly recommend if you're ever, for anybody, even for those of us who don't believe we're ever going to lose our legal capacity. It's still a good idea to have a power of attorney in place, a power of attorney for healthcare. That's where you can name an agent who's going to make healthcare decisions for you in a situation where you've lost that legal capacity. So if you pick somebody you trust, who you know is going to stand in your shoes and act the way you would act, that power of attorney or agent would be able to kind of stand in the breach if the rest of your family is trying to force you into a nursing home and the agent is the one making healthcare decisions for you. They say, you know what, no, I want her to stay in her home and be able to support you in that way. So that would be a really good document to have in place to kind of protect against that. And of course, there are some hotlines for elder abuse and elder financial abuse that I would highly recommend if you find yourself in a situation like that, to give a call if you think you're a victim of that kind of abuse.
Okay, the next question. I filled out forms in 2017, but I did not complete them. Can they still be used?
Well, it depends. The great lawyer answer, it depends. If you filled them out in 2017, they may still be able to be recorded. I would, at this point, however, usually recommend that people do new documents. The big takeaway here is that if you haven't recorded the documents, it's like it doesn't exist. It needs to be recorded with the clerk, especially for a transfer on death instrument, in order for it to have any real effect. So depending on what the document is that you filled out in 2017, you may be able to use that same form. But usually, since it's been quite a few years, I would recommend filling out a new form and getting that new form recorded.
Okay. I have a family member who has a cognitive disability. How early should we start the process around estate planning? The family member is in the hospital?
Well, once again, it's going to depend on your specific situation and what is right for that family member. One thing that you can do prior to even looking at a full estate plan for that person is you're probably going to want to have a guardian in place for them. We at the Center for Disability Law do represent people in adult guardianship petitions. So that is where the court is going to appoint someone to be the guardian of that individual to manage all of their financial affairs and their property affairs for them while they're still living. And so that's a good way to make sure that that person has the protections in place and the ability to, move their property even while they're still alive. But it's not a bad idea to do estate planning. The earlier, the better, I say, because the worst thing in the world is when you don't have something in place, the worst happens. And then probate court is a lot more costly and expensive and more time consuming to go through than if you had a plan in place beforehand.
So what does probate mean?
Probate is the court system through which we deal with estates after someone has passed. We deal with title of property that they owned. We deal with, the money that they had if they didn't have their bank accounts set to pay on death accounts, things like that. The probate court system is going to be how everything gets divvied up to that person's heirs. With a will, it's kind of like you have a clear roadmap for the probate court as to how that property gets divvied up. If you don't have a will, then you're going to be dealing with the intestacy statute, so the state law that determines who gets to be heirs when there's no plan in place. And so having that plan in place is really important, having a will, and ideally, what a lot of people try to do is to get their estate using things like transfer on death instrument or pay on death account to make their estate smaller so that when they pass, it's under $100,000. Then you can file what's called a small estate affidavit with the probate court, and it's not as big of a process that you have to go through with years in court hearings, and usually you're going to have to be represented. So using these tools like a transfer on death instrument, like a pay on death account, like the form that you saw in the presentation about naming a beneficiary for your car, all of those things are going to take those pieces of property out of your estate so that it doesn't have to go through probate court when you pass. And that's a really good thing I would recommend to anyone.
So after paying off my home, what paperwork is needed to get the property deed in my name?
Well, it's going to depend on what kind of transaction you paid for your home with. Usually people are going to do a quitclaim deed and transfer the property that way. It really, I would say it depends, but usually it's going to be a deed at the point of sale, that once you've paid everything, then a deed is going to be issued in your name by the person you bought it from and recorded with the Cook County recorder.
Go ahead.
So just to add to that, it's a very common question to our office is that, hey, I paid off my mortgage and can you send me my deed? So it doesn't work like, and as Marlo just said, it obviously depends on the transaction, but the vast majority of contemporary financing is that when you close on your home, you get your deed at that point. So that's your deed. So it's not like a car title where you pay off the car note and then the bank sends you the car title. It doesn't work that way. In some instances, it does, but those, again, are not the contemporary type of financing that most folks would usually encounter.
Okay. Does the toady instrument include the contents of the home?
No, it doesn't include the contents. It just includes the home itself, the property itself. Your furniture and personal effects would likely, if you hadn't made a plan for them in your will, they would likely just be considered part of the residuary estate, so part of whatever is left over, and passed down to your heirs as part of the residuary estate. So it's not going to automatically, all the things that's not attached, that's not a fixture, is not going to be considered part of the toady. The transfer on death instrument just deals with the home and the property itself.
Okay. If a person has passed and the children are trying to sell the house he lived in, how do you know if how do you know if they can buy the house or if the house is legit? Whose question is this?
How do you know if we buy houses, sign that you see is legit? How can we find
We can't hear. We can't hear you.
So is there?
find out?
Can you stand up, please?
How can you, if my father passed, the children are trying to sell the house, and you want to sell it, but you want to make sure you get a decent price for it, because you owe a mortgage on it. So how do you know, you see signs all over Chicago, we buy houses. How do you know if any of those are legit? But you see them everywhere. And then you start getting calls and even in Texas or whatever, about, we're about your house. So how do you know how legit they are?
Yeah, when it comes to a random sign on the side of the road, usually you're going to want to do your research to see if whatever organization they are is legitimate. I would highly recommend, only going to trusted places if it's somewhere that you're trying to sell a house. Regardless, chain of title is going to need to be managed in the name of the individuals trying to sell it. So sometimes as well, you might come across people who are trying to sell a home that they don't actually own in terms of chain of title. And that's another thing to look out for. So if you're selling your home, I would say, I wouldn't be someone who would jump to call any number I see, because you don't know anything about that organization except for the fact that they posted a number on the side of the road. If you don't do your own research into them, and you can look at the Better Business Bureau, things like that, to see if they are a legitimate company. And at that point, if you have the trust and you want to sell to them, that's your choice as a consumer and as, a homeowner to sell. But once again, as we say, buyer beware. I think in homeowner situations, you want a seller beware too, because you don't necessarily know who any of these folks are if you just see a sign on the side of the road.
Okay, next question. If your husband is deceased and you need to check the deed, what is the process? That's the first part of the question. And how can I take my husband off the title?
You guys want to take the first part and I'll take the second part?
Sure. So to check your chain of title, so those are chain of title are all the documents that are recorded against your property. It's like a book. Imagine a book. So your chain of title is like a book, and the documents that are recorded into your chain of title are like pages in a book, and they're in order, date order. And so if you know your property index number, and you can find that on your assessor assessment notice, your property tax bill, you can go to our website, type that PIN number in, property index number, PIN number, and you can check your chain of title there. And you can go back to documents that were recorded as of 1985 going forward in time. If you bought your property before 1985, then it's an archival search. You actually have to come in person to go and search for that document. So if you're looking for a deed and say you purchased that property after 1985, then you will be able to find that deed in the chain of title for your PIN online.
And with regards to getting your husband off of a deed, it's once again going to depend on what the deed was like before your husband passed. So if you were both listed on the deed before he passed as joint tenants, one of the most common things, or that's one of the most common situations that I find when a spouse passes away, is that they were joint tenants on the deed. And if that's the case, all you need to do is file a deceased joint tenant affidavit with the Cook County Clerk to, attach the death certificate to that to let the clerk know that that individual has passed away. And then if you were joint tenants, the title of the house would go to you, the other joint tenant, just by filing that deceased joint tenant affidavit. The problem or issue becomes often when the spouse passes away and you weren't on title to the property before they passed away and they didn't have a plan in place. Usually that's going to end up having to deal with it in probate court, though as a spouse, you are going to, through the intestacy statute, you would have the right to take that house. It would just go through the court process to effectuate that. And so this is why pre-planning is really, really important, because it makes it a lot easier to just send in a deceased joint tenant affidavit and get that filed with the clerk as opposed to going through a whole big court process.
Brian, here's a question for you. My husband is a veteran, and we need his DD 214 for his funeral services.
Please, who's the person with this question, real quick? please see me afterwards. I'm going to have you call my office on Monday, and we will immediately do a search to ascertain if we have his records, and if not, we will assist you in finding him through the state or the federal government. So I'll be writing back afterwards. Call me Monday morning first thing, and we'll be happy to assist you. Yes, ma'am? Hold on for a second. What's that? Perfect. Oh, I'll drop one of my cards off in a second. Yeah, I'll drop one of my cards off. You're welcome.
My brother passed away without leaving the property to me or in my name. What is my responsibility? Should I pay the taxes on this property while waiting for things to be clarified?
It depends if you believe that you want to take this house and you think that you'll be successful through the probate process in getting it. A lot of times people will pay the property taxes if they're planning on becoming a title owner of the home or becoming, owner of the home through the probate process. But, it's going to be a case-by-case basis. Again, if you don't have a likelihood of, through that probate process, getting the home, it doesn't necessarily benefit you to pay the property taxes. Paying the property taxes doesn't, always result in you getting the title of the home because they'll accept tax monies from anyone. You don't have to be title holder to pay that. And then if you don't eventually get the home through that probate process, you might just be out that money. For some people in families, you do want to keep the house in the family, and if it's still caught up in probate, the title of the home, folks will pay property taxes to keep that home, out of getting pulled by, for being foreclosed upon because of delinquent property taxes. But it's really going to be an individual situation, what your family needs, has the capacity to do and pay for, and, what your kind of risk benefit analysis is when it comes to, if I pay these property taxes and then I don't get the home, through that probate process, is that going to be a big hit to my, my budget, my income, that I wouldn't have taken if I knew I wasn't going to get this home at the end of it, right? So it's really going to depend on the person.
So how do you recommend I start estate planning with my 105-year-old uncle? He is active and coherent, but we're behind with pre-planning.
Well, a good way would be give us a call at the Center for Disability and Elder Law. We can certainly talk with him. We do want to speak to the individual who's making the estate plan, so we don't make estate plans for uncles based on their niece or nephew talking to us. We would want to talk directly to uncle. But there are certainly us or other free legal aid services we could refer you to that would assist. Some of the biggest things people want to do and get out of the way right away is things like a transfer on death instrument, what you received a form for today. That's a really good way to get the house out of his probate estate or out of his intestate estate if he doesn't have a will. So it'll have a beneficiary. Doing those quick pay on death accounts forms with your bank is going to be another good way to ensure that there's no interruption in between when he passes and when the beneficiaries can get that money and use it to close down his estate or use it to do what they need to do. But yeah, it's going to depend per the person. Every person gets their own estate plan because every person is different. They have different finances, different assets. And so give us a call. There are other legal aid organizations like Legal Aid Chicago or the Chicago Volunteer Legal Services that do estate plans, and we'd be happy to assist.
Does the current form override the older form? The older transfer on death instrument?
So, possibly, but you have to record it.
It says the current form. Contracts, tractors, and liens. Those are they may be recorded on your chain of title. Is that what you're asking? You have to look at your chain of title.
You can find out, assuming that the contractor recorded a mechanics lien against your property, you can find that on your chain of title. Yes.
And she wants to know how she can get a copy of her deed and how to obtain death records.
Okay, so for the deed, same thing. So go to our website. You've got your property index number. Punch that in, and you should see that chain of title. Like, again, everything recorded after 1985 is online.
And then you had a question about death records. So you come into the office and have to have identification. And if you are, you have to have some relation to that entity. That person, sorry. You can't just ask really for anyone's death record. You could if the death record is of the genealogical interest rather. I think that's 75 years from today. But if it's sooner than 75 years, you'd have to have some sort of relation to that person.
Okay. Once the homeowner is deceased, how soon does the toady go into effect?
Immediately. And yes, you all can speak to that too, but it should be, usually there's an affidavit that you can submit, an affidavit of acceptance. If you are beneficiary listed on the toady, you would want to file that affidavit of acceptance with the clerk, just to, have the chain of title be totally clear. But that's the beauty of a transfer on death instrument, is it transfers on death. So when that person dies, that's when the chain of title, is put into the name of the beneficiaries.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And it trumps wills and trusts. So it is the first. Well, it trumps wills and trusts.
So the will. They don't need a will or a trust to transfer their home. So the transfer on death instrument is only for the transfer of the real property.
Correct.
Okay. Do I need a will or trust if I have a toady? That question's already been answered.
You might want it. You might want a will and a trust and a toady. Like, I've been saying, every single person is different. Every estate plan is going to look different based on who you are and where your assets are. Some people want all of the things. Some people, it doesn't make sense to do a trust because they had the toady and everything else in place. So a good way to manage it is to, get some consult with legal aid, consult with a lawyer about what plan might be best for you, but you don't need all of the things. It's just a matter of which you would like in your situation.
This is a 4-part question. If a person has a mortgage on their home, what can be done? We already answered what is a trust. If you transfer property like a car and the person you transfer the car to owes back taxes, what can be done?
All right, so let's do the first one. If you own a mortgage, or if you have a mortgage, what can be done? You have to pay off the mortgage, unfortunately. There's no magical way to get around a mortgage. If you've taken out the mortgage, it's got to be paid off. When it comes to if somebody has a lot of personal debt, anytime you're naming a beneficiary in a transfer on death instrument or on a pay on death account, as soon as you die and the property is transferred to that individual, all of their debts can now start grabbing that property because they have those debts. Now they own this property. And that's another reason why a lot of people will do a transfer on death instrument instead of doing a quit claim deed to add their kids to the property now, because they're not sure what debts kids might have out there. And then the second that, kid is listed on chain of title, now all of those debtors can and creditors can come after the house that the kid now is listed on title for. So it's a good idea to, talk to your beneficiaries about the possibility of this. We always advise that when we're doing an estate plan with folks. But when it comes to, can you really control your beneficiaries in that way? Unfortunately, no. That's the $1 million. If we were all able to do that, I think we wouldn't be having this conversation right now, right? To kind of force our beneficiaries to have all of their affairs in order. Yeah.
Okay. So if a person owns a property, if a property is owned by a person, but I have all rights as the owner, but the property has a federal lien on it, whose question is this?
That I would say come talk to us for a full consultation, because we'd want to look at, multiple documents and get a full picture. I don't know that I would give you the best information out of just that quick blip. But usually when you've got some kind of federal lien on a property, that's going to be hard to overcome. And if he's listed as title on the property, that's a pretty sticky wicket. So I would say you're going to want to do a full intake, a full consultation, so that you get the best possible information.
Do I need to go to Cook County Clerk's office to file property after death? Forms.
You don't. So you're here today. You've got your. Wait a minute. Is it property
after death.
Oh, property after death.
Mm-hmm. The Cook County Clerk's office to file a property after death.
So your TODI, right? We're talking about your transfer and death instrument. Yeah, you have to file. You have to record that. I want to use the word record because that's a technical term. You have to record that for it to be effective. So this is the only office that you can do it at. So it's if you want to, you can come to our downtown office to do same-day recording. You can mail it as well. The fee right now is $50 to record a transfer and death instrument.
And do I need a separate form for each property address? And give examples of when you need an attorney.
Yeah, for each address, you're going to need a different transfer on death instrument. A really important thing to note with the transfer on death instrument, too, is you have to have it witnessed by disinterested witnesses. So somebody who is going to receive the house in the transfer on death instrument can't be a witness on that form. So it's a really good idea to, I would say in any case you can talk to legal aid, It's a good idea to get an attorney's take on things. Do you strictly need to speak to an attorney to fill out a transfer on death instrument and get it recorded? No, but it's usually a good idea to just have an attorney look over things anyway, because these are forms that we may seem like it's pretty straightforward, but when we get down to brass tacks, it's usually a good idea to have an attorney at least take a glance over it and say, yeah, that looks good.
And you'll also want to get that TODI notarized as well. And there's a section on there for you to do that. But just to piggyback off of what Marlo was saying. Also, Kang noted that it's $50 to file it right now. The person who the beneficiary is, if they want to accept that property, I think it's a $98 fee to come in and accept it. Although I think the fees are going up very shortly as of July 1st. So they're going up $9. So.
Yeah, just to piggyback off what Marla just said, is that I have seen people prepare their transfer and death instrument document, and in the section for legal description, they're describing their house. So they literally put in their 2-bedroom, 1-bath, detached garage. That's not a legal description. Now imagine if you went and recorded that. And now what are your beneficiaries going to deal with? So what Marlo said, it's very important.
What's a quit claim deed, and how do I quit claim property to a family member?
A quitclaim deed is a simple deed that doesn't involve any kind of insurance or guarantee that the person who is quitclaiming, the grantor, holds full title to the house. It's basically saying whatever interest I have in this house, I'm giving it to you. So that could be they have full title to the house and they're giving, that to the person who paid them, but it doesn't have that kind of guarantee or insurance that title is clear. So it's a very simple deed that a lot of people use because it's generally easier and cheaper to do. So that's what a quitclaim deed is.
What is a reverse mortgage? I'm married, husband didn't want name on purchase. Does he still equally own it?
So a reverse mortgage is a type of mortgage that is getting at the equity of the home. We don't do a whole lot of reverse mortgages. Does anyone else have a better description of that? I know the very basics.
No.
So it's usually going to be where you're getting money paid out to you as like out of the equity of your home. A reverse mortgage, I know you have to be 65 or older, I think, to get a reverse mortgage. For some people, it does make sense. And even if you take out a reverse mortgage, you're still on title to the home, so long as you're you're the one who has taken out the reverse mortgage. But when you die, then the full cost of the reverse mortgage comes due. And that's where people have, sometimes get issues where they're running into potentially losing the house because dad died 5 years before he thought he was going to. And now the whole note of the reverse mortgage is due and we can't pay for that. So it does make sense for some folks. I know that it's not an automatically terrible thing to do. Some people are really just automatically fearful of a reverse mortgage, but I know that there are some situations where it does make sense for some people to do it. So if you want more information about that, give us a call. There's someone else on my team who knows a lot more than I do.
How do you change a revocable executor? And how do you get your name added to a parent's deed? Whose question is this? She said revocable executor. It's a revocable trust? Can you stand up, please? Did you hear?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say give us a call and we want to talk to you in more detail about that. When it comes to, putting your name on a deed, the only person who's going to be able to do that is the person who owns title to the property. So that's something that comes up where people, want to do a deed or want to be executor for mom's estate. But mom has to be the one to make those designations and fill out the appropriate paperwork to do it. You can't do it on behalf of another family member. They have to be the one who does it. And speaking more detail about a revocable executor, I don't have a whole lot of information about that right now, but grab one of our pamphlets from the back table, give us a call, and we can do a full intake and work up with you. So if she wanted you to do it and she was able to get all the paperwork filled out, once again, I'd say give us a call. I can speak in more specificity about your situation. I'd want to take a look at whatever documents she filled out to be able to speak more clearly about that, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to combine some questions about fraud. Will the caller ID indicate the possible fraud alert is actually from the Cook County Clerk's office?
Yes, so our telephone number that's going to show up on your call ID is 312-603-4000.
And if someone has fraudulently stolen the property, what are the procedures for reclaiming it?
Give us a call. Give us a call right away. So the reason that you're signing up for the property fraud alert is that you get an alert when any document is recorded against your property. It doesn't matter if it's a mortgage or you're refinancing or you did your own quitclaim deed. It'll give you that alert. So once you get that alert, go on our website, cookcountyclerk.com, and type in your property index number and then have a look at it. You know, that's the first thing you should do, because when you get a phone call from us, you know, your heart rate's going to go up, and blood pressure goes up a little bit. You know, try to, it might be something that you actually did. So, you know, so have a look at it, and if you don't recognize that document, or you know, in the worst case scenario, somebody signed your name to a quitclaim deed, and it's straight out fraud, give us a call right away.
And we have 2 investigators. This is sort of what they do, is investigate these kinds of issues. Eventually, if there was something really recorded against your deed, that probably would go eventually to the state's attorney's office. But initially, our office would help you try to uncover what actually happened. So,
and just to you know, clarify some things here, the vast majority of the calls that you're going to get from the property fraud alert, or an email, if you sign up for an email, are going to be documents that you actually participated in. You know, you refinance, you got a mortgage, you quitclaim deed your property to a family member. So that's, in my experience, that's a vast majority of the alerts that are going out. Then, in a smaller subset, it's what I call indexing errors. That's just somebody who typed in the wrong number in trying to put the document to a property, and so the document ends up on the wrong property, and that's, we'll help you with that as well. And then in the very small situations, there's straight out fraud. And again, give us a call. We'll sort that out for you.
Will we be able to turn in the property fraud registration document today? Yes, that's why we gave it to you. You can complete it, sign your name at the bottom. You don't have to input your PIN number. Just complete it, put the address of the property, how you want to be notified, sign it at the bottom and date it. Give the form to one of our staff at the table. Show your ID so we know that you are not the fraudster, and we will take your form and get it input into our system. The other question is, how much time lapses from the time a fraudulent claim is discovered until the owner is notified?
Okay, so to clarify, when you get a call, it's not that the document is fraudulent. It's an automated call that's triggered by a document that is, number one, recorded and then indexed against your property. So when you do get a call, you know, first thing you should do is have a look at our website. Check out what document it was. It might be your mortgage giving you, recording your release. That's great news, right? You paid off your mortgage, or you quitclaimed your property to your family member. So it's something that you may have already participated in. But again, if it's something that you don't recognize, definitely feel free to give us a call. And as a technical matter, when a document is recorded, it takes a little bit of time for a human being to look at the document and then data entry that information, and that's called indexing. And that's how a document shows up against your property. So recording, then indexing, it takes a few days. It takes about a week to 2 weeks.
Okay. What is a will? What is better, a will or a trust?
It depends on the person. It depends on what property you have. With the will, that's usually when you don't have a whole lot of property that you're worried about, getting pulled into, creditors and things like that. The idea of a trust is that you have kind of an additional it's an additional tool that kind of protects, ideally, the home against creditors is what a lot of people use it for. But it actually, what the trust does is it takes title of the home out of your name and puts it into the name of the trust. So then this trust is kind of like an additional body that protects the home, is the ideal behind it. But you don't necessarily need it if you've already done something like a transfer on death instrument that'll effectively remove your home from the probate estate. So it really depends on the person. Some people will have both a will and a trust. Some people will have just the will. Some people will not have either and just do a transfer on death instrument and pay on death accounts. So it's going to depend on what your assets are, what your situation is, to determine what the best buffet of tools is that you should use.
Our time is winding down, so I'm only going to read a couple more questions, and they're going to all be related. How do I add my son's name to my car if it's paid for? Where do I get the banking information for transferring my bank account? And I gave my bank and financial institutions the name of my beneficiaries. Is there anything the beneficiary needs to do other than come, bring the death certificate and their ID?
So for the car, you're likely going to be looking at the Illinois Secretary of State to get that title transferred into your son's name or whomever's name you want the car transferred into. You can also do, as we learned about in the presentation, the Illinois Secretary of State has a form for transferring title of your car on your death. So that's another thing you can do. What were the other questions?
What should I do to get the banking information for transferring my bank account?
You go directly to your banking institution. Wherever you're banking, you're going to go to them and you're going to say, I want to make my accounts a pay on death account. And each banking institution has its own version of forms and what they'll ask you to fill out to make that happen.
And to make a claim, what do they need to do? What does the claimant need to do? The person that's receiving the account as the beneficiary?
Yeah, it's going to depend on the bank. They'll have their own internal process of how they do that. But usually it's going to be, you go to that bank, you say, you bring the death certificate, you say, hey, my mother died, here's the death certificate. She made me the beneficiary of her pay on death account, and then the bank will transfer that to you.
Okay. Maybe I should read these other two. We got few minutes. Is there any talk in Chicago, Cook County, and Springfield regarding changing the law about squatters' rights?
Wow. Well, not that I know of. In Chicago, I mean, there's always talk about changing those laws, right? Like everybody is going to have an opinion, and there's certainly different lobbying groups of people who want the law to go one way and who want it to go the other way. In Chicago, we do have, the residential landlord-tenant ordinance in Chicago, which has some additional processes and protections around that. But it's going to depend based on where you are. I imagine there are people working on it, but I just don't know who they are.
Okay. So is the toady unique to Cook County? Will the concept be found in other counties in the U.S.? And will fraudsters be discouraged by the toady?
So it is the entire state of Illinois has transfer on death instrument. You can be anywhere in the state of Illinois and use that transfer on death instrument. This is just the form that the Cook County clerk put out, but you can certainly do a form of it regardless of what county you are in the state of Illinois. Other states also have, some of them have a similar type of process, but it's state by state.
Will fraudsters be discouraged by the toady?
I hope so. I mean, at least with the transfer on death instrument, it is a way of, making a plan so that you can get the home out of your estate. The transfer on death instrument, of course, is not necessarily it doesn't freeze your chain of title when you, record a transfer on death instrument. You can always make changes to your transfer on death instrument while you're still alive. You can do a new one. You can straight up sell the home to somebody else. And then the transfer on death instrument just wouldn't be in effect because you no longer own title to it after you've passed. But, the hope would be that these types of tools make it easier for people to make an estate plan.
Okay, last question. My family may challenge my mother's ability to sign documents since she has mid-level dementia. Can I film her as she signs any documents?
If she consents to be filmed, you can film her, but that's not going to necessarily be a clear-cut protection. People can make claims against an estate at any time and say that somebody didn't have the capacity. I mean, once that person has died, they can come to court and say, I think that person didn't have the capacity. They have to make their case and explain why they believe that and give evidence for it. And in such a case, if your mother consented to be recorded and she said, I want to be recorded so it's clear, that could be a piece of evidence that you might be able to bring into such a contested court case. But unfortunately, people can make claims. It's just up to the court to kind of look at the evidence for those claims once somebody has passed.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So for the sake of time, if your question did not get answered, you can feel free to approach one of our attorneys after we conclude, and they will be happy to answer your questions. Now, how is that for free information? Now, people perish for the lack of what? So we've given you information that you could use to help you with your estate planning. And we want to thank our attorneys today for their time, donating their time to come out to assist us with this forum. Now, a lot of questions were asked about the property fraud alert. You can fill this out, leave it with us today. If you own more than one property, you have to fill out more than one form. With the transfer on death instrument, yes, this is a legal form that you can use. That question was asked. This form should be filled out at the with counsel of an attorney. Because you want to make sure that you get it recorded properly in our records so that your beneficiary has no problems claiming the property after you're gone. So make sure that you get someone, a legal person, preferably, to help you fill this form out. And the most important information we want to leave to you today is that you should have a plan. It's very, very important that you have a plan for transferring your wealth, because if you don't, where's it going to go?
You don't do it, the government will do it for you.
That's right.
Just that simple.
That's right. So make sure you have a plan. Just like in our presentation, the most famous people in the world didn't have a plan. James Brown took years for his estate to be probated. And it had to go to probate because they challenged it. The kids challenged it. So by the time they got it resolved, there was nothing to divide. So make sure you have a plan. And be sure to call our office if you have any questions. If you want to watch this presentation again, it's going to be uploaded on our social media pages and on our website. It's cookcountyil.gov. Is that right? Yes. cookcountyil.com.
So
it's on the pen.
Anybody have a pen? We've got it right on the pen.
Cook County,
right there.
www.cookcountyclerk.com. So you have all the information you need. If you want to schedule one of these events in your community, you can contact me, Robin Staggers, at 312-603-3974. There are requirements that you have to meet, though, so I'm going to tell you a few of them. Have to have at least 50 people present. You also have to partner with one of your local elected officials so that they can support your effort and help you get as many people out in the community to this forum so that they can spread the word, so that they get this important information. So we are grateful for Karen Yarbrough for allowing us to come out in your community to spread the word about you have options. Okay? You have options, and there's no reason why your property shouldn't go to your beneficiary, because you hold the power of the pen. Okay? So I want to thank Alderman Greg Mitchell for having us out today. And Alderman Mitchell, if you want to have some closing remarks? Don't you love your alderman? Thank you so much, Alderman, and his staff for coming out. Thank them.
Yeah, guys, so thank you for coming out. Once again, it was good seeing everybody. I want to give you a heads up on something that's coming at the end of the month. So we're going to have a community resource fair. It's a partnership between my office, the 4th District Police, and Compassion, and it's going to be on June 30th from 11 to 2 p.m. So information will be forthcoming, but I wanted to give everybody a heads up. And also, if you have any more feedback about what you heard today, feel free to definitely let us know, because these are our partners. The information that you guys give is invaluable. I just want to take you home with me, because we need you guys. So once again, everybody, thank you for coming out. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you soon. Oh, another thing that's coming. I'm working on a meet and greet with the new mayor, Brandon Johnson, to come out to the neighborhood, just like I did with Mayor Lightfoot. So I'm working on that. So and I want to plan that with you guys, because when we have them here, I want you to ask some very good questions. I want us to be on the same page, because there's a lot of things that I'm working on trying to bring more and more to the ward. But we got to be very strategic about this. So you'll hear more from me about that. Again, have a good weekend, everybody.
I'm remiss, I'm so sorry. Thank you, Lindsay Chase, who is my assistant, Bonnie Johnson from our office, and Brian Cross, who is our Director of Veteran Services, including Kang Trin, our attorney, and Devin Mates, another of our attorneys. Thank you so much for your time.